Now, I was a mathematician, and mathematicians often have slightly crazy ideas. So I tried putting in a gear with 26.5 teeth, and I pressed the key on the calculator, and the result was 0.11257965, exactly the right answer to 9 places of decimals. It just hit me like a thunderbolt. That twice 26.5 is 53. Michael Wright had been correct about the 53-tooth gear. The riddle of the 53-tooth gear had been solved at last. It turns the large 223 gear with just the right 9-year rotation, so that the pin and slot exactly models the ancient Greek theory of the moon's variable motion. We'd followed the trail of clues in the prime numbers, the numbers 19, 127, 223, and then finally 53, to understand how the mechanism worked. And it was just an amazing moment when everything came together. We knew now what all the numbers in the tooth counts were, which had been a complete mystery before and not understood. And it was just a quite incredible moment.
The team's next quest, however, was just as formidable. Who'd invented this extraordinary machine 2,000 years ago? This investigation would throw up many more surprises.
We thought the answer to the question who made the mechanism might lie inside the mechanism itself.
Tony Freeth in London and Alexander Jones on the other side of the Atlantic were deciphering Greek month names on the Metonic upper back spiral. Then the breakthrough happened.
Every Greek state had its own distinctive calendar. 4 of the month names stood out as being really quite rare. There was one called Lanotropios, another Dodecatius, a third called Psidrius, and a 4th one called Phoenikaios, which was the first month of the calendar. I realized that these 4 months belonged to the calendar of ancient Corinth, and so they had to be coming from either Corinth itself or from one of the colonies that Corinth had founded, for example, Syracuse over the sea in Sicily.
There were more tiny clues, which might point towards a Corinthian designer of the mechanism. I was looking in the X-rays at this little subsidiary dial that's divided into 4 sectors. I noticed this word Nemea, and I had no idea what it meant. Almost immediately, Alexander Jones in Toronto emailed me with the answer. Now you have a clear reading Nemea, which I'm darn sure is indicating a year when the Nemean Games were held. This was one of the 4 Pan-Hellenic Games. The Nemean Games, I discovered, took place every 2 years and were originally based on warlike events. Only warriors and their sons could take part. We were curious as to why one of ancient Greece's famous Pan-Hellenic Games should appear on the mechanism, and how would this lead us to the designer?
These are the starting blocks where the athletes began their races going down the track. They would put their feet, their bare feet, mind you, in the grooves, one foot in the rear groove, one foot in the front groove. They would try to get their weight to move out just as the race began. There were the standard running events. One stadion in length was the premier event of roughly our 200-meter race. There was a race in armor, a double stadium race, where the athletes wore helmets and shields. There was the Pancratium, where people broke arms and strangled one another. A really lovely event. The Nemean Games were on a par with the games at Olympia, Delphi, and Isthmia. Those 4 sites were the crown sites.
On this small dial, we found 4 sectors: the Nemean Games, the Pythian Games at Delphi, the Isthmian Games at Corinth, and finally, the most prestigious games of them all, the Games at Olympia, that happen every 4 years.
The Olympic Games were believed to have been founded as early as 776 BC. This stadium held 45,000 people. We began to wonder why there had to be a dial on the mechanism showing the dates of these Pan-Hellenic Games like the Olympics events that took place at such regular and simple intervals, every 2 and every 4 years, numbers they could count too easily on their fingers. The games could therefore have offered a fixed reference for the 19-year dial on the mechanism, a fixed date transcending the rise and fall of Greek states and their magistrates and the deaths of their kings.
The surprising thing about this dial was the size of the lettering for the Isthmian Games at Corinth, far bigger than the prestigious games at Olympia, as if the Corinthian Games were much more important.
All the evidence now suggested that the mechanism's designer came from Corinth. But the team believed that it might have originated from Corinth's rich colony of Syracuse in Sicily. In the 3rd and 4th century BC, Syracuse was the second largest city-state in the entire Greek world, founded centuries before by poor Corinthian immigrants from the Greek mainland. It had